What the hell is that doing on my grandfather's grave? I'm frozen on this Montana dirt where I scattered Grandpa's ashes 3 weeks ago. This ranch was his life. 4 generations bled and sweated for every inch. He taught me to ride here. We buried our dead in this sacred ground. It's all I have left. Now 115 luxury mansions rise where cattle grazed. Infinity pools shimmer over pastures. Tesla chargers like tombstones. California plates everywhere. The air thick with mulch, chlorine, and entitlement. Ice blonde in 90K Range Rover pulls up. Window cracks.
Excuse me, you can't be here. This is private property.
Private property. On my grandfather's grave. Voice low, shaking with rage. Actually, ma'am, this entire road you're all using, it's mine. 115 mansions, 1 road in, 1 road out. What happens when their playgrounds lose their only lifeline? Montana justice. Quiet, legal, coming. What would you do if they paved over your family's legacy? Drop your state below, Team Ranch or Team HOA? My name is Griffin Thornfield, and 3 weeks ago I buried the last man standing between my family's ranch and financial ruin. Grandpa's final words still haunt me. Promise me you'll keep the land, son. Don't let the vultures pick our bones clean. Easy for him to say. He wasn't staring at $127,000 in medical bills and a mortgage payment that's 3 months behind. Thomas Thornfield defended this 847-acre spread for 60 years, but he never had to choose between keeping the ranch and keeping food on the table. Now I'm the only Thornfield left, and I'm drowning. The drive home from his funeral takes me past landmarks that built my soul. The creek where we taught calves to drink, the barn that needs a new roof I can't afford. I've been considering selling the south pasture to some developer, maybe keep enough land for a small operation. The taste of failure sits bitter in my mouth, but pride don't pay bills. Until I crest the hill and see what's already happened to my south pasture. What the actual hell? 115 mansions squatting on my land like ticks on a dog's back. Not the empty field I left 3 weeks ago. Monuments to greed with fake stone facades, circular driveways, and swimming pools that wink at me like blue eyes in a corpse's face. The mechanical growl of landscaping equipment drowns out bird song that's been the soundtrack of this land for a century. I pull over, hands death-gripping the steering wheel. The metallic taste of pure rage coats my tongue as I count house after obscene house. California plates gleam in every driveway like middle fingers pointed straight at heaven. The cloying sweetness of imported mulch makes me gag. Nothing here smells like Montana anymore. That's when I spot her directing traffic like she owns the place. Meet Vivien Blackthorne, former Santa Barbara City Council member, current HOA president, and the woman who thinks Montana land comes with California rules. She's gorgeous in that plastic, surgically enhanced way that screams, I controlled a $2.3 million municipal budget, and I'm not afraid to use those skills. What matters to me right now is what her crew just loaded into their truck. My great-grandfather's memorial cross. Excuse me! I'm marching toward her before my brain catches up. What gives you the right to touch that cross? She pivots with practiced politician grace. Oh, hello. Vivien Blackthorne, HOA president. I'm terribly sorry, but that marker was really an eyesore. We have aesthetic standards to maintain. Property values, you understand. Property values. On the grave of the man who died building this place. Lady, do you have any idea whose land you're standing on? Her laugh sounds like wind chimes in a tornado. Of course, sweetheart. This is Willowbrook Estates. I personally oversaw the county approval process. Everything's completely legal. We have all the proper permits and easements. Easements. That word hits like a punch to the gut. I walk away on legs carved from stone, her condescending laughter chasing me across soil baptized with 4 generations of Thornfield blood. Every step crunches like broken promises. That night, I transform Grandpa's Kit Lane table into a war room. Property deeds spread like battle plans, water rights documents that smell like leather and determination. I'm looking for any legal foothold to fight this invasion. Then I find the smoking gun buried in a 1987 survey. The access road to their subdivision crosses my property at 14 different points over 1.7 miles. Every twist, every turn, every inch of their precious pavement sits on Thornfield land. But here's the beautiful part. The developer claimed a temporary construction easement to build that road. Temporary. The easement expired 6 months ago and was never renewed. Every single resident drives across my land twice daily without legal permission. 230 cars trespassing on private property every day. These entitled parasites didn't just steal my land. They built their entire community on a legal house of cards, and I'm about to be the wind that blows it down. Time to show these California transplants what Montana property law looks like. The next morning, I'm standing in the county courthouse basement, surrounded by filing cabinets that smell like bureaucratic defeat and 40 years of neglect. The fluorescent lights buzz overhead like angry wasps while I dig through property records, looking for answers that taste like dust and determination. What I find makes my blood run cold. The subdivision was approved through something called a minor adjustment process, county doublespeak for we didn't want to deal with proper hearings. The developer claimed he had a temporary construction easement for road access across my property. I remember Grandpa once telling me about easements when we were mending fence. Son, an easement is like letting your neighbor borrow your driveway, but if they never asked permission and the loan expired, they're just trespassing with fancy paperwork. Temporary construction. The easement expired 6 months ago and was never renewed. Every single resident drives across my land twice a day without legal permission. 230 cars trespassing on private property every 24 hours. The beautiful irony tastes sweeter than honey. They're all breaking the law just getting home. Time to educate some lawyers. 3 days later, I'm feeding cattle when my mailbox decides to vomit legal threats all over my Kit Lane table. The envelope is thick, expensive, and reeks of intimidation. Inside, letterhead from Blackthorne, Morrison & Associates. Apparently, Vivien traded on her maiden name to start her own legal empire after leaving California politics. But here's where Vivien shows her hand and reveals she's been playing chess while I was still learning checkers. The cease and desist letter doesn't just demand I stop interfering with established community access patterns. It goes nuclear. $50,000 in damages for harassment and intentional infliction of emotional distress, legal fees, court costs, punitive damages that would bankrupt me 3 times over. The kicker? The letter arrives exactly 1 year after Grandpa's death, hand-delivered by a process server who probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. This isn't legal strategy. This is psychological warfare designed to crush a grieving rancher who can't afford to fight back. Vivien just made her first mistake. She assumed I was like every other country bumpkin she steamrolled in Santa Barbara City Council meetings. But when you're 4th-generation ranch stock, you learn that angry decisions get your cattle killed and your family starved. So instead of charging over there like a bull with his tail on fire, I do something that would make Grandpa proud. I get smarter. Back to the courthouse, this time armed with a legal pad and the kind of patience that comes from watching grass grow for 37 years. The county clerk, Martha, has worked here since dirt was invented. She watches me work for 2 hours before shuffling over with a cup of coffee that could strip paint. "You Thomas Thornfield's grandson?" she asks. "Yes, ma'am." "Good man, your grandfather. Always paid his taxes on time, never caused trouble." She pauses, studying my paperwork. Unlike some folks who think money can buy them a new history. Martha disappears into the back room and returns with a file folder thick as a phone book. "Might want to look at this." Original survey from 1987, back when the county actually cared about doing things right. The survey map spreads across the table like a treasure map, and what I find makes me smile for the first time in weeks. The access road doesn't just cross my property. It winds through my land at 14 different points over 1.7 miles. Every curve, every straightaway, every inch of asphalt sits on Thornfield soil. I hire a certified surveyor for $3,200 I can't afford, money that should have gone toward fixing the barn roof. But some investments pay dividends in satisfaction. The surveyor, a weathered man named Pete who talks like he's conserving words for winter, spends 2 days with his instruments. When he's done, bright pink flags mark the property line every 50 feet along the road like party decorations for the world's most expensive wake. "Your grandfather was smart," Pete says, rolling up his maps. "Most folks don't realize their property lines can extend right up to county roads. But private roads? Different story entirely. This one's all yours, son. Every goddamn inch." The flags flutter in the Montana wind like prayer flags, each one a small victory against the entitled invasion consuming my family's legacy. The smell of sagebrush mixes with my growing confidence. Finally, I have ammunition to fight back. By evening, the HOA message board explodes like a kicked anthill. Residents post photos of the surveyor flags with comments ranging from confused to panicked. What do these mean? Should we be worried? Is our access in jeopardy? I sit on my porch with a beer, watching the distant glow of their security lights, imagining the emergency phone calls and frantic Google searches happening behind those perfect facades. The sound of coyotes howling in the distance feels like a victory song. The next morning, I send certified letters to all 115 households. The language is simple, direct, and absolutely legal. Formal notice of trespass. You are using private property without permission. You have 30 days to negotiate access rights or face legal consequences. Vivien calls me within an hour, her voice tight with barely controlled fury. "You can't do this," she hisses. "We have established access patterns. This is frivolous harassment." "Ma'am," I say, letting the silence stretch like taffy, "you might want to check who actually owns the land your road sits on. Always verify access rights before you build your dream home. That's advice every buyer should remember." The line goes dead. Game on. 2 weeks pass in blissful quiet while I watch their perfect little world start to crack. The taste of morning coffee mixed with impending justice has become my new favorite flavor. Then Vivien shows me she's been playing chess while I was learning checkers. I'm checking fence posts when 3 black SUVs roll up my driveway like a federal raid. Out steps Vivien, but she's not alone. County Commissioner Bradley Walsh emerges from the lead vehicle, the same man who rubber-stamped every Willowbrook permit. The smell of expensive cologne and political corruption hangs in the Montana air like a chemical spill. "Marcus," Walsh says, extending his hand like we're old fishing buddies. "I think there's been a misunderstanding. Maybe we can work something out, neighbor to neighbor." I remember Grandpa's advice about politicians. When they start calling you neighbor, son, that's when you better count your cattle and hide your wallet. But here's where Vivien reveals the true scope of her operation and drops a bombshell that changes everything. "Of course," Walsh adds with practiced casualness, "if reasonable negotiation isn't possible, the county's been considering infrastructure improvements. Eminent domain can be complicated. My brother-in-law Pete mentioned some environmental concerns. Cattle runoff, you understand. Very expensive cleanup. My blood turns to ice. Pete Walsh, the same developer who built Willowbrook Estates. This isn't corruption, it's a family business. After their convoy disappears, the real war begins. My phone starts ringing at midnight with threats. Someone slashes my truck tires and spray paints last warning across my barn. The acrid smell of fresh paint mingles with hay, turning my sanctuary into a crime scene. But if Vivien wants to play spy games, 2 can play that game. I spend my savings on military-grade surveillance equipment, motion cameras with night vision covering every approach to my property. If these people want to trespass, I'm documenting every second. The investment pays off faster than expected. 3 days later, my cameras capture HOA maintenance crew dumping chemicals into my cattle creek at 2:47 a.m. The liquid glows green in infrared footage, spreading downstream like liquid death. Water testing confirms my worst fears. Nitrate levels 40% above safe standards, plus herbicides that could kill livestock. These people aren't just harassing me, they're committing environmental crimes. While collecting evidence, I get an unexpected phone call that changes the entire game. "Mr. Thornfield, this is Janet Morrison from Willowbrook Estates. I live at 47 Meadowlark Drive. Could we meet somewhere private? I have information you need to know." Janet turns out to be a retired accountant who's been reviewing HOA financial records. She meets me at the diner in town, nervous as a long-tailed cat in a room full of rocking chairs. "Vivien's been stealing from us," she whispers, sliding a manila folder across the table. $83,000 in administrative expenses with no documentation. Fake invoices for landscape consulting that doesn't exist. The documents tell a story of systematic embezzlement. Vivien created shell companies to funnel HOA money into her personal accounts. Janet's not alone either. 2 other residents, both with financial backgrounds, have been quietly gathering evidence. "She did this before," Janet continues. "In Santa Barbara, drove 3 families out of their neighborhood with harassment and legal threats, then bought their properties below market value through a front company." Suddenly, everything makes sense. Vivien's not just power hungry. She's running a real estate scam, using HOA authority to force out property owners and steal their land. But Janet's revelation gives me something more valuable than evidence: allies inside enemy territory. The next day, I drive to the county seat and hire Patricia Winters, a property rights attorney who specializes in easement law. Her retainer costs $5,000 I can barely afford, but her advice is worth its weight in gold. "Marcus, you have 3 options," she explains over coffee that tastes like liquid litigation. "Sue for trespass damages, block access immediately, or charge usage fees." But here's what most people don't understand. In property law, the threat of action is often more powerful than action itself. Keep them guessing about your timeline. Patricia explains something crucial I'd missed in my courthouse research. Montana follows prior appropriation water doctrine, meaning first in time gets first in right during disputes. My great-grandfather's 1923 water filing trumps every modern development. "When buying property near water, always verify who owns the water rights," she says. Most people assume surface ownership includes water access. Big mistake. Armed with legal strategy and inside intelligence, I start my own reconnaissance mission. I walk the entire 1.7-mile road with a measuring wheel, identifying 3 choke points where access could be easily restricted. I research industrial gate costs, security camera systems, and installation timelines. The smell of sagebrush and possibility fills my lungs as I plan my next move. Vivien thinks she's been playing chess, but she's about to discover I've been learning to play poker. Time to call her bluff. The next 2 weeks feel like the calm before a Montana thunderstorm. Everything's quiet on the surface, but you can taste the electricity building in the air. Then Vivien does something so desperate it makes me wonder how she ever fooled anyone with a functioning brain. I'm feeding cattle when Sheriff Deputy Miller pulls into my driveway, his expression somewhere between apologetic and annoyed. The crunch of his boots on gravel sounds like a death march as he approaches, carrying a manila folder that reeks of legal trouble. "Marcus, I'm sorry about this, but I have to follow up on a complaint. Vivien Blackthorne filed a report claiming you threatened her with violence yesterday evening." My blood pressure spikes like a rocket. "Deputy, I haven't seen that woman in 3 weeks. She provided an audio recording." He plays the clip, my voice, clear as day, saying, "You better watch your back, lady, or you'll end up buried 6 feet under, like your precious subdivision." Except I never said those words in my life. But here's where Vivien reveals just how desperate she's become, and hands me the smoking gun I need to destroy her. The recording sounds perfect to untrained ears, but I remember reading about deepfake technology during my courthouse research sessions. Audio manipulation software has gotten sophisticated enough to fool most people, but forensic analysis can detect digital fingerprints that prove tampering. 24 hours and $800 later, a digital forensics expert delivers his verdict. Multiple splice points detected, voice synthesis software signatures present, recording artificially constructed from source materials. Vivien just committed a felony by filing a false police report. In Montana, that carries up to 5 years in prison. While I'm savoring the irony of Vivien destroying herself, my HOA allies drop a nuclear bomb that changes everything. Janet Morrison calls at dawn, her voice shaking with excitement. "Marcus, we conducted a legal audit of HOA records last night. What we found, Jesus Christ, you need to see this." The documents they discovered reveal corruption so deep it makes Watergate look like a parking ticket. Vivien hasn't just embezzled money, she secretly owns the development company that built Willowbrook Estates through a maze of shell corporations and straw buyers. The entire subdivision is an elaborate real estate fraud designed to steal my land and generate millions in profit. "She's done this 4 times in California," Janet whispers. "Always the same pattern. Build on questionable land, harass original owners into selling cheap, then flip everything for massive profits." Armed with this intelligence, I launch a psychological warfare campaign that would make military strategists weep with admiration. Every morning, I position my largest tractor at the exact property line where their road enters my land, not blocking access, just visible, like a steel and diesel monument to property rights. The exhaust drifts across their perfect lawns, a daily reminder of who really controls their fate. I start conducting routine maintenance during peak traffic hours, moving cattle through gates that require temporary stops, testing irrigation systems that spray light mist across the asphalt, just water, completely legal, but enough to spot their luxury cars with ranch reality. The sensory warfare is poetry in motion. Manure smell from my cattle operation wafts toward their subdivision during evening barbecue hours. The mechanical symphony of my equipment working late into the night carries across their bedroom windows. Every sound and scent reminds them they're living in the middle of a working ranch, not some sterile suburban fantasy. Meanwhile, their property values start collapsing like a house of cards in a hurricane. Here's something most homebuyers never learn until it's too late. Title insurance companies hate uncertainty, and access disputes make them nervous as cats in a dog pound. When insurers start questioning whether properties have legal road access, they cancel policies faster than you can say liability lawsuit. 3 major insurance companies terminate homeowner policies within 1 week. Real estate agents warn potential buyers about ongoing property rights litigation. The phrase every seller dreads most becomes common knowledge: title defect pending resolution. I watch from my porch as for sale signs multiply like weeds after rain. 5 houses hit the market simultaneously, each listing price dropping weekly as desperation sets in. The mathematical beauty of supply and demand works exactly as economics textbooks predict. Flood the market with identical products during a crisis, and values crater. The psychological pressure breaks the HOA board's loyalty to Vivien. My allies orchestrate a vote of no confidence that strips her of all authority. Even her closest supporters abandon ship when they discover she's been stealing their money to fund her real estate empire. That evening, I walk the entire road access route with a measuring wheel, identifying the perfect choke point for a gate installation. The narrowest section sits exactly 347 feet from the county road, close enough for emergency vehicle access, far enough to make their daily commute a negotiated privilege instead of an assumed right. Time to turn their suburban paradise into my personal toll booth. I'm sitting in the musty basement of the State Archives building, surrounded by file boxes that smell like forgotten history and mice droppings, when I stumble across the document that changes everything. It's a 1994 environmental impact study for the original ranch, buried in a folder marked Rural Water Assessment, Thomas Thornfield Property. The yellowed pages crackle like autumn leaves under my trembling fingers as I flip through technical surveys and hydrological charts. Then I see the map that stops my heart cold. Underground spring system, flowing beneath the entire 847-acre property. Primary water source for a 12-square-mile area including, and here's where the room starts spinning, the exact location where Willowbrook Estates now squats like a parasite. Every single one of those 115 luxury homes is stealing my family's water. The taste of copper fills my mouth as the implications hit me. I drive straight to Helena and hire Dr. Sarah Rodriguez, a hydrogeologist whose $300 hourly rate suddenly feels like the bargain of the century. Her assessment reads like Vivien's obituary written in scientific terms. Mr. Thornfield, this underground spring originates entirely on your property. Your great-grandfather filed water rights in 1923 under prior appropriation doctrine. First in time, first in right. Those rights supersede any modern development, period. The numbers make my head swim. 115 homes consuming 47,000 gallons daily from springs that belong to me. At commercial rates, they owe me $32,000 annually in usage fees. Every drop they've used since day one. But here's the nuclear bomb that would make Grandpa dance a jig in his grave. During drought conditions like we're experiencing now, senior water rights holders can legally shut off junior users completely. I could turn off their water tomorrow and it would be perfectly legal. Dr. Rodriguez explains what most people never learn until it's too late. Water law is simple. Whoever filed first gets priority when supplies run short. Surface ownership doesn't automatically include water rights. Most homebuyers assume their property includes water access, but that assumption can cost them everything. The legal reality hits like a sledgehammer to the chest. I don't just control their road access, I control their entire water supply. Every toilet flush, every morning shower, every sparkling swimming pool depends on water that legally flows through my ranch first. $68 million in real estate values now hanging by a thread I can cut anytime I choose. When word leaks through my HOA allies, Vivien's response confirms she understands exactly how catastrophically screwed she is. Janet calls me that evening, voice shaking with nervous energy. Marcus, Vivien hired a water rights specialist from Denver. She's threatening to claim adverse possession, says continuous use should grant them permanent access. I actually laugh until my sides hurt. Janet, adverse possession requires 10 uninterrupted years minimum. Their subdivision isn't even 2 years old. Either her attorney doesn't know Montana law, or he's robbing her blind while she panics. But Vivien's desperation reveals the true scope of her legal nightmare. Federal embezzlement charges, state felony charges for filing false police reports, civil lawsuits from angry homeowners discovering she stole their money, and now the revelation that her entire empire sits on stolen water with zero legal defense. Fighting a water rights case would cost the HOA $400,000 they don't have, assuming any lawyer would take an unwinnable case. That night, I sit on my porch watching Willowbrook's lights twinkle like fallen stars. Each light represents a family whose life I could destroy with one phone call to the state water commissioner. The power coursing through my veins feels both intoxicating and terrifying. I could bankrupt 115 households, force entire families into financial ruin, turn their dream homes into worthless monuments to legal ignorance. But Grandpa didn't raise me to be a destroyer. He raised me to be a protector. Time to separate the innocent from the guilty and deliver justice with surgical precision. Grandpa's old office becomes my command center, maps and legal documents covering every surface like battle plans for the most important war of my life. The smell of fresh ink mingles with dust from century-old property deeds as I transform from grieving rancher into tactical genius. Coffee brews constantly while papers rustle like autumn leaves. Survey maps, water rights filings, HOA financial records, environmental reports, and criminal evidence that could send Vivien to federal prison. My smartphone buzzes with encrypted messages from allies inside Willowbrook, each update adding ammunition to my arsenal. Patricia Winters, my property rights attorney, arrives for our weekly strategy session carrying a briefcase that smells like leather and legal victory. We've identified 17 similar cases nationwide where original landowners successfully destroyed illegal developments. "Marcus, you're holding the strongest legal hand I've seen in 20 years, she says, spreading case files across Grandpa's oak desk. But here's what separates winners from losers in property disputes. Psychological warfare beats courtroom battles every time. The threat of action creates more fear than action itself. She explains something that changes my entire approach to this fight. During drought emergencies like we're experiencing, senior water rights holders can shut off junior users with just 48 hours notice. No court hearing, no appeals, just notification to the state water commissioner, and their taps run dry. Most homebuyers never verify water rights independently of their real estate agent, Patricia warns. They assume surface ownership includes water access. That assumption destroys more dreams than market crashes ever could. While Patricia crafts legal strategy, I focus on building the physical infrastructure of ultimate control. I drive to Billings through air thick with anticipation and order a custom 16-foot steel ranch gate that costs $12,000 I can barely afford. Solar-powered motor, smartphone app control, tamper-proof locks that could stop a tank. The metallic smell of the fabrication shop reminds me of Grandpa's old blacksmith forge, tools built to last forever. The gate will sit at the road's narrowest choke point, positioned exactly 347 feet from county jurisdiction. I've designed emergency vehicle bypass routes because I'm seeking justice, not murder. Fire trucks and ambulances will still have access. Luxury commuters won't. Big Jim Johnson from Johnson Excavation listens to my specifications with the serious attention of someone who understands property rights. His calloused handshake feels like a promise. 72 hours from your go-ahead, that gate's operational, he rumbles. 4-foot concrete posts, high-strength mix that'll cure harder than diamond. Those California plates won't cross your land without permission anymore. Meanwhile, my intelligence network inside enemy territory expands from 3 allies to 11 cooperative residents. Janet Morrison coordinates information flow through encrypted apps that would impress CIA operatives. The evidence they're gathering reveals corruption that makes Watergate look amateur. "Marcus, we found invoices for $47,000 in road repairs that never happened," Janet whispers during one of our coffee shop meetings. The smell of her nervous sweat mingles with espresso as she slides documents across the table. She's been systematically robbing us for 2 years. But the nuclear evidence comes from an unexpected source. Vivien's own computer files, accidentally copied during an HOA records transfer. Email correspondence with the original developer reveals the entire conspiracy. They knew the easement was illegal, planned to harass me into selling cheap, and promised Vivien $2.8 million for her cooperation. Armed with this intelligence, I coordinate a media strategy worthy of military strategists. Rebecca Lane, investigative journalist from Channel 8 News, specializes in corruption exposés that destroy political careers. This story has everything viewers crave, she says, reviewing my evidence with predatory excitement. Environmental crimes, political corruption, real estate fraud, and David versus Goliath drama. I want exclusive coverage when this explodes. I agree to synchronize the revelation with her filming schedule. Visual impact will be crucial. Luxury cars trapped behind my gate while FBI agents arrest corruption in designer clothing. But revenge isn't my endgame. Justice with community healing is. The Thomas Thornfield Agricultural Heritage Scholarship will provide $10,000 annually to rural students studying agriculture or environmental science, funded by water usage fees and easement payments from Willowbrook. Grandpa's name attached to opportunity instead of conflict. The Environmental Restoration Project transforms Vivien's pollution into wildlife habitat around the contaminated pond. Montana Fish and Wildlife has promised technical assistance and matching funds, turning criminal damage into ecological treasure, every detail planned with surgical precision, every contingency mapped and prepared, every possible countermove anticipated and neutralized. I spend evenings walking the property perimeter, breathing air thick with sagebrush and possibility. The sound of coyotes howling across land my family has protected for a century fills me with ancestral strength. Vivien built her empire on lies, corruption, and stolen property. She's about to discover what happens when someone challenges a thornfield on Montana soil that's been sanctified by 4 generations of honest sweat. Time to activate the trap that will free my land and teach these parasites the real meaning of property rights. The war escalates on a Tuesday morning that smells like diesel exhaust and tastes like impending victory. My phone buzzes at 5:47 a.m. with a motion alert. Security footage shows 2 figures in dark clothing breaking into my barn where I store the legal documents that could destroy Vivien's empire. The infrared camera captures everything in crystal clarity: bolt cutters, crowbars, and most importantly, faces. But here's where Vivien's desperation leads her to commit the stupidest crime of her career. The lead intruder is Derek Blackthorne, Vivien's 26-year-old son from California. His fingerprints cover my filing cabinet, his DNA decorates the broken window, and high-definition footage captures every detail as he rifles through documents like a common criminal. While I'm filing felony charges at the sheriff's station, Vivien launches a corruption blitz that reveals the true scope of her political network and proves she's been playing chess while I thought we were playing checkers. County Commissioner Walsh calls that afternoon, panic bleeding through his fake professional tone. "Marcus, irregularities in your property tax assessment require immediate reevaluation. Substantial increase likely, maybe triple your current payments." The threat hits like a sledgehammer. Property tax warfare could force me to sell the ranch just to pay government extortion. But Walsh's nervous stammering tells me he's terrified of federal investigators breathing down his neck. "Commissioner, interesting timing, especially since the FBI's been asking about your brother-in-law's development permits." Click. Dial tone. Panic confirmed. Within hours, Vivien's pressure network collapses like a house of cards in a tornado. My feed supplier calls apologizing for misunderstandings. My veterinarian schedules routine visits. My insurance agent restores full coverage. Funny how federal corruption investigations make local businesses remember their community loyalty. Meanwhile, I'm conducting my own silent preparation that would make Sun Tzu weep with admiration. Every morning at dawn, I position heavy farm equipment near the property boundary where their precious road enters my land. Not blocking anything, just visible. The psychological impact is beautiful. Luxury car owners driving past my diesel tractors and manure spreaders get daily reminders about who controls their access to civilization. I start routine maintenance during peak commuter hours, moving cattle through gates that require traffic stops, testing irrigation systems that spray light mist across the asphalt. The smell of ranch life, hay, diesel fuel, cattle, drifts across their sterile suburban fantasy like olfactory warfare. The sensory assault works exactly as planned. Their evening barbecues now compete with the aroma of fresh manure. Their children's outdoor playtime echoes with machinery sounds. Every sight, smell, and sound reminds them they're living in the middle of a working ranch, not some California suburb. But my real preparation happens behind the scenes, building the infrastructure of ultimate control. I coordinate with Big Jim Johnson to have gate installation crews on standby. Materials staged, equipment ready, permits filed. 72 hours from my activation call, luxury commuters will need my permission to reach their driveways. The insurance crisis accelerates their property value collapse faster than I dared hope. Here's something most homeowners never learn until disaster strikes. Title insurance companies panic when property access becomes uncertain. They'd rather cancel policies than risk massive liability payouts from access disputes. Within 1 week, 3 major insurers terminate coverage for Willowbrook properties. The domino effect is beautiful to watch. No insurance means no mortgages. No mortgages mean no buyers. No buyers mean worthless properties. For sale signs multiply like weeds after rain as desperate homeowners try to escape before total collapse. 5 houses hit the market simultaneously, each price dropping weekly as panic selling accelerates. My courthouse research reveals corruption so deep it reaches federal crime territory. Walsh received $15,000 in consulting fees from shell companies owned by Vivien's network. Every permit approval bypassed proper review through emergency variances that benefited exactly one development. The evidence points to something prosecutors love more than birthday cake: RICO enterprise. Racketeering, mail fraud, wire fraud, bribery, conspiracy, charges that carry decades in federal prison. When criminal organizations use the mail system or cross state lines to commit fraud, federal prosecutors treat it like organized crime. That evening, Special Agent Jennifer Martinez from FBI White Collar Crime Division listens to my evidence summary with predatory focus. Mr. Thornfield, what you've uncovered appears to be systematic land theft using government corruption. We're seeing similar schemes across rural America, organized criminals targeting family ranches for real estate fraud. She explains that my cooperation could expose a national pattern of corruption targeting agricultural properties throughout the Mountain West. But the revelation that changes everything comes from an unexpected source. Dr. Helen Morrison, Janet's mother and retired federal prosecutor, calls with intelligence that makes my blood run cold. Marcus, I've prosecuted this exact scheme in California. Vivien's part of a network that's stolen millions in rural property using identical methods: harassment, corruption, legal intimidation. Suddenly, everything clicks. Vivien isn't just some entitled suburbanite, she's a professional land pirate who's perfected the art of stealing property through systematic corruption. She picked the wrong ranch to target. The final battle begins with Vivien's most desperate and revealing move yet: a social media blitz so obviously fake it makes Nigerian prince scams look sophisticated. My phone explodes with notifications as my name trends on Facebook groups across Montana. Doctored photos show me supposedly threatening elderly residents with a rifle. Fake audio clips have me ranting about California scum and purifying Montana soil. Anonymous accounts flood local news comment sections with claims that I'm an eco-terrorist planning to poison Willowbrook's water supply. The digital forensics expert I hired to analyze her fake police recording takes one look at this mess and starts laughing. Mr. Thornfield, whoever created these deepfakes used the same voice synthesis software signatures we detected before. She's literally using the same criminal methods that already got her charged with filing false reports. But Vivien's social media campaign backfires spectacularly when investigative journalist Rebecca Lane traces every fake account back to IP addresses registered to Vivien's home network. The woman actually used her own internet connection to create evidence of her own crimes. The legal consequences hit like an avalanche. Additional charges for harassment, defamation, and cyberstalking pile onto her existing federal crimes. Her criminal defense attorney quits via email, citing irreconcilable differences with clients' decision-making. While Vivien destroys herself with digital evidence, she makes one final play that reveals just how completely she's lost touch with reality. Judge Patricia Hoffman listens to Vivien's restraining order petition with the patience of someone who's seen every variety of human stupidity. Vivien claims I've stalked her, made death threats, and created a hostile environment that prevents normal community activities. The problem? Security footage from Willowbrook's own cameras proves every claim is impossible. I haven't set foot on subdivision property in 6 weeks. The alleged stalking incidents occurred while I was at the courthouse researching water rights with 30 witnesses. Ms. Blackthorne, Judge Hoffman says with ice in her voice, filing false testimony under oath is perjury. a felony that carries up to 10 years in prison. Are you certain these events occurred as described? Vivien's silence speaks volumes. Her attorney, a different one from last week, looks like he wants to crawl under the table and disappear. But my counterattack comes not through lawyers, but through the most powerful weapon in any property dispute, undeniable truth broadcast to the entire region. Rebecca Lane's news crew arrives at my ranch on a crisp Thursday morning that smells like sagebrush and justice. The documentary cameras capture everything: the Memorial Cross site, the contaminated pond, the survey flags marking where their road crosses my land, and most dramatically, the massive steel gate that's about to control their access. This isn't about revenge, I tell Rebecca as cameras roll. This is about 4 generations of my family's legacy being stolen by criminals who thought a Montana rancher wouldn't fight back. The interview goes viral within hours. Justice for Grandfather starts trending nationwide as the story spreads across agricultural communities, property rights groups, and social media platforms. Letters of support arrive from ranchers in Texas, farmers in Iowa, and property owners across America who've faced similar corruption. But the most powerful support comes from an unexpected source: Willowbrook residents themselves. The HOA board, now completely controlled by my allies, votes unanimously to cooperate with federal investigators and provide full financial records. 67 homeowners sign a formal letter apologizing for Vivien's crimes and requesting settlement negotiations. Mr. Thornfield, the letter reads, we had no knowledge of the illegal activities conducted in our community's name. We ask for your forgiveness and the chance to make this right. The psychological warfare reaches its crescendo when I activate the final phase of my preparation. At exactly 7 o'clock a.m. on a Monday morning, peak commute time, I remote activate the gate system for a 60-second demonstration. The steel barrier slides across the road with mechanical precision, while luxury cars back up behind it like expensive dominoes. The message is crystal clear, without a word being spoken. I control their access, I control their property values, and I control their future. Local TV stations capture the moment live, broadcasting footage of trapped Mercedes and Tesla owners to viewers across Montana. The visual impact is devastating. Entitled suburbanites suddenly realizing their million-dollar homes are worthless without the permission of the cowboy they tried to destroy. That evening, my phone rings with a call from the new HOA president. Mr. Thornfield, we're prepared to discuss fair compensation for road usage rights and water access, whatever it takes to resolve this honorably. The taste of victory is sweeter than Montana honey, but it's tempered by the responsibility that comes with total control over 115 families' fates. These people, most of them innocent victims of Vivien's schemes, are offering complete surrender. Time to show them what Montana justice looks like when it's served with wisdom instead of revenge. But first, there's one final confrontation that needs to happen in front of witnesses, cameras, and the entire community that's watched this war unfold. The County Fairgrounds Exhibition Hall hasn't seen this much drama since the cattle judging scandal of 1987. 400 people pack into a space meant for half that number, their nervous energy mixing with the smell of popcorn and anticipation as everyone waits for the showdown that's been building for months. The media presence looks like election night coverage. 4 TV crews, 2 newspaper photographers, and live streaming setups that will broadcast this confrontation to property rights groups across America. Rebecca Lane positions her cameras for maximum dramatic impact, capturing both the packed audience and the empty defendant's table where Vivien should be sitting. I enter through the main door like a gunslinger walking into a saloon, carrying a briefcase full of evidence that will end this war once and for all. The crowd parts naturally. 60% Willowbrook residents, 30% local ranchers and farmers, 10% county officials who look like they'd rather be anywhere else on earth. Vivien arrives 15 minutes late with 3 attorneys trailing behind her like expensive funeral directors. Her usual perfect appearance has cracked. Yesterday's makeup, wrinkled clothes, and the haunted look of someone who knows the walls are closing in. The contrast between her former arrogance and current desperation tastes like justice served at exactly the right temperature. Ladies and gentlemen, I begin, approaching the microphone that squeals with feedback before settling into crystal clarity. Tonight we're going to settle the question of who owns what, who owes what, and who's going to prison for stealing from their neighbors. The giant screens flicker to life, displaying property surveys that show every twist and turn of their access road crossing my land. water rights documents dating back to 1923, environmental damage photos with timestamps, security footage of chemical dumping that makes several people gasp out loud. But the nuclear evidence comes next. Financial records proving Vivien embezzled nearly $300,000 from Willowbrook residents while secretly owning the development company that built their homes. Every house payment you made, I announced to the stunned crowd, every HOA fee, every assessment, it all went into the pockets of the woman who was supposed to be protecting your interests. The audience reaction sounds like a collective intake of breath followed by the rumble of 200 people realizing they've been systematically robbed. Several residents stand up, pointing accusingly at Vivien, whose 3 lawyers suddenly look like they're reconsidering their career choices. That's when the evening takes a turn that exceeds my wildest expectations for dramatic justice. The rear doors burst open and FBI Special Agent Martinez strides in, flanked by 4 federal agents, their badges gleaming under the fluorescent lights. The sound of handcuffs clicking echoes through the sudden silence like gunshots in a cathedral. Vivien Blackthorne, you're under arrest for conspiracy, racketeering, mail fraud, wire fraud, embezzlement, filing false police reports, and violation of federal environmental protection laws. The perp walk happens in front of 400 witnesses and rolling cameras as Vivien is led away in handcuffs, her empire crumbling with each step toward the exit. Flash photography captures every moment of her downfall for tomorrow's front pages across Montana. With Vivien gone, I return to the microphone for the moment I've been planning since this war began. My grandfather Thomas Thornfield built this ranch with his bare hands and the belief that honest work and fair dealing could create something lasting. Tonight, we're going to honor that legacy by turning this conflict into something that benefits our entire community. The settlement terms I announce bring spontaneous applause. Reasonable annual fees for road usage, full environmental cleanup funded by Vivien's seized assets, and establishment of the Thomas Thornfield Agricultural Heritage Scholarship for rural students. This was never about destroying families or bankrupting neighbors, I continue, feeling Grandpa's presence in every word. This was about teaching bullies that Montana ranchers don't back down from fights, but we know the difference between justice and revenge. The new HOA president, elected after Vivien's removal, approaches the microphone with a document signed by 97 homeowners. Mr. Thornfield, we formally apologize for the crimes committed in our community's name. We accept your settlement terms and ask for the chance to be good neighbors. The handshake between us gets captured by every camera in the room, the moment when 115 families and 1 stubborn rancher choose cooperation over continued warfare. The applause lasts nearly 2 minutes, people standing and cheering for a resolution that saves everyone's property values while ensuring justice for the crimes committed. But the most powerful moment comes when I announce the memorial project that will honor Grandpa's legacy forever. The Thomas Thornfield Memorial Grove will be planted where Vivien destroyed my grandfather's cross, funded by this community as a symbol that some things are more important than profit margins, like respect for the people who came before us. The taste of victory mixed with community healing is sweeter than any revenge could ever be. 6 months later, the transformation looks like something out of a fairy tale about justice and community healing. The environmental restoration around the pond has exceeded every expectation. Crystal clear water reflects Montana's sky, while native fish populations return in numbers that make the state wildlife biologist grin like a kid on Christmas morning. The smell of clean water and healthy wetlands has replaced the chemical stench of Vivien's contamination, creating habitat that attracts deer, birds, and fishing enthusiasts from 3 counties. Willowbrook residents have become the most surprising allies I could have imagined. Instead of the entitled suburbanites I expected, these people roll up their sleeves for monthly ranch maintenance projects that strengthen both the community and our shared infrastructure. Last weekend, 20 families volunteered to repair fence lines damaged in the spring flooding, their city soft hands learning the satisfaction of honest ranch work. Property values have not only recovered but increased 8% above pre-conflict levels as word spreads about the most cooperative HOA in Montana. Real estate agents now use Willowbrook as an example of how urban and rural neighbors can coexist when mutual respect replaces mutual suspicion. The Thomas Thornfield Agricultural Heritage Scholarship has already changed lives in ways that would make Grandpa weep with pride. Sarah Lane, no relation to the FBI agent, is the first recipient, a ranch kid from outside Billings whose family couldn't afford college tuition. She's studying sustainable agriculture at Montana State University, planning to return home with knowledge that will help family operations adapt to changing climate conditions. Mr. Thornfield, she wrote in her thank you letter, This scholarship means I can help my family keep our ranch instead of selling it to developers. Grandpa Thomas is helping protect more land than just yours. The annual fund now generates $35,000 yearly from road usage fees, water access payments, and voluntary contributions from Willowbrook residents who understand they're investing in the next generation of agricultural stewardship. Vivien's justice came swifter and more complete than I dared hope. Federal court sentenced her to 12 years in prison after she pled guilty to avoid a trial that would have added decades to her punishment. The restitution order requires repayment of every stolen dollar plus interest, while civil lawsuits from angry homeowners continue draining her remaining assets. County Commissioner Walsh resigned 3 days after Vivien's arrest, citing family health concerns that nobody believed for a microsecond. His replacement, a local rancher named Tom Rodriguez, runs on a platform of transparent government and protection for agricultural land use. The ripple effects of our story continue spreading across rural America like seeds on fertile ground. Property rights organizations invite me to speak at conferences where ranchers and farmers share strategies for protecting family land from corporate developers and corrupt officials. The phrase Montana justice has become shorthand for standing up to bullies with patience, preparation, and legal precision. Netflix is producing a documentary about the case that will premiere next spring, with proceeds supporting agricultural preservation efforts throughout the Mountain West. Rebecca Lane won a regional Emmy for her investigative reporting, launching her career toward bigger markets and more important stories. But the most meaningful change happens every morning when I walk past the Thomas Thornfield Memorial Grove, where 30 young oak trees grow in soil that was once poisoned by greed and corruption. The new HOA board funded the entire project, creating a living monument to the man whose values ultimately defeated those who tried to destroy them. Personal healing came gradually, like grass growing back after a hard winter. The ranch operates profitably for the first time in years, supported by easement fees and environmental tourism that brings school groups to learn about wetland restoration and sustainable ranching practices. My nephew Jake, inspired by the scholarship program, announced he's switching his major from business to agricultural law. Uncle Griffin, somebody needs to help other families protect their land the way you protected ours. The Thornfield legacy will continue for another generation, stronger than before. The taste of morning coffee on my porch now mixes with satisfaction instead of bitterness, as I watch my neighbors drive peacefully to work on the road we all maintain together. Children play in subdivisions built with respect instead of theft, while cattle graze on pastures that will stay green for generations to come. Every sunrise reminds me that Grandpa's promise has been kept. The land remains in family hands, protected by law and surrounded by community instead of enemies.